So, hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar Wednesday. I'm really excited for our guest speaker, Tricia Witham. I will introduce her in a little bit, and Tricia is going to share with you what she and a colleague did in Barron, Rusk, and Washburn counties and how they grew their workforce. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. A few things. I'm going to launch a poll. We have 3 questions. It just kind of helps me get to know who's on the call. If you've been through a webinar Wednesday before, the other benefit is if sometimes we have people who have been on webinar Wednesdays already. Sometimes we have people and it's their first time. So it kind of helps me gauge on how deep to get into things. Housekeeping, just try to keep yourself on mute if you're not talking. And feel free to type a question in the chat. Leslie, my counterpart, is on the call and she will be moderating the chat. What else do I want to say? You can feel free to, stop me in the middle of something and ask me the question. Then, so you can ask me, you can put it in the chat, and I will be giving everyone my email address to reach out to me after this. All right, so we're going to get started with the first poll question. And basically this one just asks, is this your first time joining Webinar Wednesday or have you joined previous Webinar Wednesdays? If you are able to pop your answers in there. Okay, so just so everyone can see, the majority, this is their first time joining us. Welcome, we're so happy to have you. And we do have someone who has been here before, and I think it was Krista. So hi, Krista, it's good to see you. Let me go to the next question. How do you identify? Are you a family caregiver? Are you a professional who serves family caregivers, or are you both? Oftentimes there are many employed family caregivers. All right, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So the majority are professionals who serve family caregivers, and we do have 2 special guests today who do both. So thank you so much for all that you do. One last one. We don't sell any of your information. Obviously, this is just data. We're trying to see what parts of the state are people joining from. So we have 3 from the northern region, 2 from the southeastern region, and it looks like 4 from the northern region is representing today, and 3. So the northeastern region, the southern region, and the western region need to step it up a little bit. I'm just kidding. So let me go ahead and share those results. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and get started. My name is Rachel Watkins Peterson. I'm a project manager with Respite Care Association of Wisconsin. We are a statewide nonprofit. We serve all 72 counties in the state. I'm going to go ahead and get my screen shared. Let's see. Sometimes it's hard to, here we go. All right, Les, can you just give me a thumbs up? Can you see my screen? All right. So welcome everyone. I just want to start off by sharing our mission with you. We promote, support, and expand quality statewide respite care across the lifespan. We cannot, there's no other way we can start this webinar without saying happy National Family Caregivers Month. This whole month of November, we will be celebrating by sharing outreach, education, and resources for family caregivers. And this is a staggering statistic. There are 45 million caregivers in the US, and they provide an estimated $480 billion of uncompensated care each year. So essentially what this also says is the stress from family caregiving, it's around the clock, it's 24 hours a day, it's 365 days a year. That takes a toll on people's mental and physical health. And oftentimes the mental and physical health go hand in hand, and caregivers, this job of family caregiving exacerbates their health conditions. We are celebrating National Family Caregivers Month. We encourage you to like us on Facebook, follow us on LinkedIn. The first week, which is this week, we're celebrating Kinship Caregivers. So that's grand families or any relative who is caring for another child as their, stepping in as their parent. The second week of the month, we're going to celebrate underserved populations. The third week, caregivers across the lifespan. Oftentimes we know siblings are an invisible caregiver group that does not get much recognition. So that's just one example of celebrating the lifespan. And then on the 22nd to the 28th, we're celebrating employed caregivers. And as we know from the poll that we just took, we have some employed caregivers joining us today. Two upcoming events I wanted to share with you. You can register for these by visiting our website, or these are also on our Facebook page, or if someone wants this JPEG or PDF to share with their professional network, let me know. We're going to be having Connie, the founder of American Association of Caregiving Youth, come and talk to us about the growing, hidden, vulnerable, and precious population. And that is on November 10th. Now, the next one, this is not something that we are hosting. This is something that Heather from Jefferson County shared with us, and we asked her if we could share with others. We had a question, do you have to be in Jefferson County in order to join TIPA Snow, Humor and Caregiving? And she said, no, it's open statewide. So if you'd like more information on this, please let us know. To kind of kick off the webinar, as well as National Family Caregiver Month, these are some staggering statistics that, and it's a caregiving crisis. 1 in 5 Wisconsinites are family caregivers. 80% of all caregivers and all care in Wisconsin is provided by families. Half of caregivers are forced to cut back on their jobs. So if you're cutting back on hours, you're losing money. If you have to quit your job, there goes your income. 60% of people living with intellectual or developmental disabilities live with family caregivers. The other thing is 25% live with caregivers who are older than 60. And as you can tell, that can cause some raising issues when the caregivers are also aging. 85% of people needing care say they cannot find workers to help. And that's why we're really excited to introduce our guest speaker, Tricia, to hear how she grew the workforce in her Tri-County area that she oversees. The last is 1.2 family caregivers in Wisconsin keep family members safe and healthy at 1.2 million. It's incredible. I'm not sure if people are familiar with ACL, or the Administration for Community Living. So some things to consider: their RAISE Act, the Family Caregivers Act initial report to Congress. So RAISE is recognize, assist, include, support, and engage. They gave a report to Congress to consider things in their budget. And this is really profound, a really profound part of that initial report to Congress that I found. It says, unless we teach more family caregivers how to fish for services, we will bankrupt ourselves with burned out caregivers who go down before the care receiver. And that's where the really critical part of respite care comes in, to try and prevent that burnout. Or they'll need to prematurely place their frail loved one or their adult child in a nursing home or an adult family home, and that completely depletes their funds, and it leaves taxpayers having, we'll get into Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements. That's a whole nother day. So that is so important, and this really tells us the why for respite care and how important it is. Some really exciting news that I wanted to share with you. 2 times a year, we offer the respite care provider grant funds, and we will be doing so for the next few years. This is because we received money through the Federal Lifespan Respite Grant Program and a partnership with Wisconsin DHS. And what this is to give money to underserved populations to to pay for either existing respite care programs in their community or for just a startup or a new respite care program, and it goes towards direct respite care hours. So we had, I think the first round of this grant in the spring, we had maybe 6 or 7 people apply, but then with the word getting out, I think we had about 24 applicants in the fall, and we're only able to select 5. So congratulations to I'm not sure why the LCO is a little bit bigger than everything else. This doesn't mean that they got more money than everyone, but it was this really critical funding to go and support underserved populations. All right, let's get to it. What is respite care? Many of you know on the call what it is, but it can be planned or it can be an emergency. And in other countries, they call respite care short breaks. And essentially it gives the caregiver a chance to rest, refresh, and recharge. There's so many barriers to respite care, and at our CAW, with our mission to promote, support, and expand quality statewide respite care, we really like to break down the barriers. I would say the first barrier is a lot of people don't identify as a caregiver. They're a wife, they're a child, they're a sibling, they're a parent, and they don't identify as a caregiver. And we create so much awareness throughout the state that you are a caregiver. There are services to help you. There are a lack of respite care providers. How we try to break down that barrier, we have a registry of trained providers, and it's free to search for a respite care provider. It is free to list yourself. Oftentimes people can't afford hiring someone to get that break, and we have grants to help with that. And these grants are not income-based. Essentially, anyone would be eligible. There are some paperwork and a supporting documentation form that we need completed. And oftentimes people are a bit weary or uncomfortable hiring someone that they don't know. And you can hire friends or family with our grants. You can also hire someone from an agency, but oftentimes we do hear that from family caregivers. They're too nervous to hire a stranger, so they can hire anyone that they would like. It's really important to reframe respite care for the professionals on the call. Oftentimes, caregivers feel like they're failing, or they feel too guilty to take that break. But if we can reframe it, it really is a benefit to the care recipient as well, to do meaningful activities with the respite care provider, get a little change of scenery. Oftentimes, we all know caregivers are completely burned out, and the care recipient, regardless of their age or their disability, they have memory impairments, they can absolutely feel that tension and feel when the caregiver is burnt out. So it's good for them to get a break from the caregiver just as much as it's good for the caregiver to get a break from their duties. Also, for self-preservation, if caregivers aren't taking care of themselves and taking that break, they are going to burn out. They are going to have health conditions arise, and they might not be able to provide care for their loved one anymore. And it's also important, we like to say respite is in the eyes of the beholder. Oftentimes, you can have someone come into your home, do a meaningful activity or creative engagement with the care recipient. Sometimes you just want to go for a walk. Sometimes you want to take a nap. A lot of times, caregivers use respite care so they can take care of their own health needs and go to medical appointments. You can go to lunch with your friends. So whether you're sleeping and that's your definition of respite, and you're taking a nap, or you're going for a walk, or you're hanging out with a spouse or other members of the family, it really is whatever the person wants to make it. Here are some benefits of respite care. Caregivers can rest, refresh, and recharge, and we all know what a good sleep and a break can do for our souls and our bodies. It can prevent bad habits. Oftentimes people are so incredibly stressed out, they might kind of pick up some bad habits as a vice along the way. It helps them if they choose. Like I said, it's in the eyes of the beholder, and it's completely their choice. But oftentimes caregivers, they lose their sense of identity, and they feel like they've lost who they once were. So getting that break, and if they get to be social and be with their friends or other family members, they can still have a sense of identity. It certainly reduces friction from the caregiver and the care recipient. Just getting that break from each other. Like I said, it benefits the care recipient just as much. Also, isolation, we all know what that can do to someone's mental health. And if we can decrease isolation and increase chances for social engagement, so good for them. And it absolutely boosts social, emotional, and physical health. So with all of those benefits of respite care, let's get into our programs. I'm going to talk about some free training that we have, our registry, some grants, other webinars and resources that we offer. Let's first talk about, our free training opportunities. We have a respite care provider training. We have a kit for respite care providers, a kit for caregivers, bringing respite to your community. That's a workshop. There's another one starting in the winter. That's led by our training and development specialist, Val Manson. Anyone who's interested in starting a respite care center, being able to provide respite care out of their home, any kind of startup respite, there's a 6-week course and there are 6 3-hour meetings. And we've also had people join that do already provide respite care in a professional setting, and they still join the course because there's lots to learn. We have monthly minis that we offer, as well as some specialized online training. So the Respite Care Certificate Program, I am going to go ahead and skip to the core competencies. So essentially the RCPT, it's free. Learners can work at their own pace. If some of you have been here before, you might remember we used to call it the Respite Care Certificate Program. However, with a different federal grant that we received, there was an expert work panel and there were over 200 survey respondents. They were trying to come up with, there weren't core competencies for respite care professionals. So these are the core competencies. Everything is covered in the course. I'm just going to go ahead and skip to the next. These are all of the courses within the RCPT. And in the light blue, you'll see the core competency that it meets. There's a post test. Learners can start and stop and work at their own pace. And then at the end, they do get a certificate of completion for 7 hours. We do have a kit for respite care providers. We have becoming an independent respite care provider. That goes into liability, different payer sources in Wisconsin, and everything that you would want to know if you wanted to become independent. If you're going to be a sole proprietor, so essentially, are you going to be your own boss and bill people? And there's also how to market yourself as a respite care provider. We've had people go through our free online training, the Respite Care Certificate Program, now called the Respite Care Provider Training. And when you're done with that, you have the choice to be listed on the registry. And what was happening before is we would have people complete the course successfully, make a profile on the registry, and then they would reach out to us and say, okay, I'm on the registry, now what? And there's nothing worse than knowing there's someone that wants to help and provide respite care, because there's such a need for it. So we created a course, How to Market Yourself. It goes into social media postings, ways to order business cards, how to update your resume, and ways to think outside of the box and get creative. We also know oftentimes people who go through the course and may want to be a sole proprietor and be their own boss, they might not have a ton of funds to start up a web page and all of that. So we wanted to, give them a guide and other very affordable ways that they could market themselves and their services. We do have a kit for caregivers, so it's knowledge, ideas, and tools. It's for a family caregiver, oftentimes it's hard for them to understand and admit that they need the break, or that they do need that respite care. And it can be daunting. You're navigating systems, you're filling out forms, you're meeting someone else's basic needs. They're barely meeting their own basic needs. Now it's time to hire someone. Sometimes that can be so overwhelming. That can be the barrier. So this goes into interview questions, how to run a background check. There's a checklist, to give them a tour of their home, a social profile you can fill out for about the care recipient, or the care recipient can fill out for themselves, depending on the disability and where they are at. And it really just sets them up to hopefully have a good, successful relationship with that respite care provider. When I talked a little bit ago about our specialized training, if anyone is on the call today that would like a promo code, I'm happy to share the link with you. We also, for anyone that has completed the respite care certificate I need to change that to RCPT. So the respite care provider training, they can then at the end of the course, it tells them we do have these codes. We have a partnership with UW Oshkosh, and there's a dementia generalist for friends and family. We don't expect friends and family to go through the respite care provider training. If you know of any friends or family members caring for someone living with dementia and you think they would benefit, it's online, you can do it at your own pace, please send them our way. There's a dementia generalist for healthcare providers, and then a dementia specialist course. I've gone through all of them, and they're really great courses. They're what do I want to say? How do I say it nice? They're very engaging, and it keeps you energized while you're taking them. It's not a snooze, if you will. All right, what I want to talk to you about next is our registry. Essentially, this is a bridge to connect people who provide respite care to people who need respite care. We have agencies that list themselves on the registry. Now, obviously we do not put every agency in the state on there. It's essentially agencies that come to us that want to fill out a request form to be listed on the registry, and they have availability, to add to their caseload. And the other bulk of the people on the registry are those who have completed our respite care certificate or the respite care provider training. One of the frequently asked, so it's free to list yourself, it's free to search. One of the frequently asked questions that we get asked, do you run background checks? So we are not the employer of the individuals listed on the registry. We provide the free training, the free registry, and it's up to the caregiver to run the background check and make an informed decision for themselves. So it's essentially a consumer-based registry, but also in the kit for caregivers, there are directions in the links on how to run a background check, and we can absolutely help someone in that process if they need. This is Jolene from Barron, Washburn, St. Croix. So essentially, if you search the registry, let's see. If you search the registry, it will show essentially their contact information. How can you get a hold of them? What counties they're available to work in, what age that they serve. So if you're a professional respite care provider and you're filling out the form to be listed on the registry, you would list the same things, how people can get a hold of you, the counties you want to work in, exactly how old of the care or how old the care recipient. So if they're a child, if they're an adult or an older adult, hours you're available to work, experience, education, and anything else they would like to add. All right, do we have any questions so far? Okay. All right, well, we will get started and talk about our grants. If my screen, there we go. So the first grant I wanted to talk to you about is our Caregiver Respite Grant Program. So essentially what this is it can provide up to 5 days of respite care in a 90-day period. Anybody can be eligible. What we do need is a supporting documentation form from either the county or the ADRC, but in the bulleted section, you can see if someone's applied for a long-term care waiver support or another grant like NFCSP or AFCSP, and the caregiver is not expecting to receive services, or they've been waitlisted, if they've applied and been denied, if they've applied for and they've been approved, but they're going to exhaust their other funding. Typically, that's always the NFCSP, National Family Caregiver Support Program, or the AFCSP, the Alzheimer's Family Caregiver Support Program. If they've applied, but they need a flexibility to hire a friend or family member, oftentimes, especially for parents who have children living with disabilities, the respite care provider needs to be essentially vetted and go through Medicaid, or excuse me, go through training that's been approved by Medicaid standards. And oftentimes they just want to hire someone that they know. So if someone is in and receives either CLTS, that's Children Long-Term Supports, or CCOP dollars, and their county contact fills out the supporting documentation form and just checks, yes, they're enrolled, but they need some flexibility on who they can hire. That's another eligibility criteria. Or if people have not applied for long-term care waiver supports or other grants because they're not eligible. This is some data that we collected. I believe this was from our last 25 Caregiver Respite Grant Program recipients. And one of the things we asked them is, so you can reapply every 180 days. So that's 6 months. We used to have the availability to offer this program for caregivers to apply 4 times a year. The increase between 2 years for our grant programs increased about 126% in applications. And we had to make the decision, in order to keep this grant program and our supplemental respite grant program sustainable, caregivers can now apply 2 times a year. And in efforts to collect data and see what they're doing for their respite care time, if they want to reapply, we ask them to fill out a caregiver experience survey. So anyhow, this is the data. This is what they said that they did with their time. Most spent time with their other family members. That around the clock caregiving, they're exhausted, and oftentimes it definitely affects other relationships with family members. A lot of also social activities. They spent time with their spouse. They went to medical appointments. They completely rested, refreshed, and recharged. And some of them used their time to complete household tasks. All right, so our supplemental respite grant program, it's the same eligibility criteria as the Caregiver Respite Grant Program, but essentially the difference is the allowable expense. So the Caregiver Respite Grant Program, that pays for the human service for the person, for one-on-one respite care. This pays for housekeeping and laundry, meal prep, lawn care, snow removal, transportation, and technology. And I would say easily 90% of our applicants use this for housekeeping. Like I say, respite is in the eyes of the beholder, and them getting that break and having someone and help clean their house it's a huge help to them. And the same thing goes for the Caregiver Respite Grant Program. They can hire a friend or a family member. They can hire someone from an agency. They can hire whoever they would like. All right. Our group respite grant program, it is exactly what it is. It's for groups. So if there are support groups, and one of the barriers for caregivers, able to come to the support group is they can't find respite care. We've had people apply, they're able to hire respite care providers, whether they're PCWs, CNAs, or whatever would meet the level of care that the care recipients need, and that pays to cover the costs. So we have the Fox Valley Memory Project. When they do events for caregivers, they have 3 CNAs that they hire and bring in, and the care recipients get to go to a same property, different room, get to do a meaningful activity. And the core grants. This is what Trisha is going to talk to us about in a bit, and what she did in her Tri-County area. But essentially, it's the purpose of the core grant is to expand the pool of trained respite care providers, to educate family caregivers. We do ask that they try to collaborate with others, if they're in ADRC, try and collaborate with, because we do fund the life, or we do serve the lifespan rather. So as many people and collaborating partners they can get for their core grant events or however they choose to use their money if it's approved. We like collaboration. I think this is my second to last slide. So Trisha, you'll be up in just a second. I do just want to make mention that these are some, not all, of our RAT cards. So we have on our website, which I'll share with you at the end, there are free marketing materials. So they're front and back. I just took real quick snips of the fronts, and then I believe there are 6 RAT cards in total. But if you're a professional and you want to have some of these, so they're 2-sided. I didn't send a snip of the other side, but you can see exactly what they look like on the website. You can go ahead and request them. They're free. We even cover the postage and we send them to you. And this is if you want to have these at your disposal to share with family caregivers. This is how you can get a hold of me. Here's my email, our phone number, our website. I really encourage everyone to follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn. We keep up to date with posts about upcoming grants that will be available, like the Respite Care Provider Grant I talked about earlier, and just lots of great resources for professionals and families. All right, so I'm going to stop share, and I do see something in the chat. Can the group respite grant cover someone who wants to attend an evidence-based program such as, okay, we have some caregivers who want to participate, but can't because, so Lisa, would they use the group respite? You can go ahead and unmute if you're able. Are they to you? Is this for providing for a group, or can you help me understand?
So the Powerful Tools for Caregivers class is it's a group setting. It's 6 weeks, 2 hours long. And we've had some caregivers who'd really like to join the class, the 6-week class, but they have issues with what do they do with the care receiver. So
okay, so would it be providing respite on site while they attend the Powerful Caregivers?
Right now we're virtual, so it would be providing respite in the individual's home so that the caregiver could attend the classes.
Okay, so that would be an allowable expense under the Caregiver Respite Grant program. So the group respite grant is solely for groups, but yeah, that if the caregiver wanted to apply and hire someone to provide respite care that way, I would definitely encourage the Caregiver Respite Grant program.
So in this situation, they'd use the CRGP, not okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so because
group respite and group. If it's provided to a large group.
Okay. So we'll probably get some RAT cards because when we promote Powerful Tools, I think we'll start promoting that grant as well. So we can get more people to come through.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Of course.
Hey, Rachel, this is Trisha. Just a question with Lisa's question to tag on it. If we did want to do something like Powerful Tools in person and have on-site respite, would
that's group respite grant?
Got it. So like a savvy caregiver or something else, and we wanted to like hire somebody to do on-site respite, we could apply for that grant. Awesome. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. So in that situation, because hopefully in 2022, we're going to be able to do on-site. In that situation, then we would use the one that you just spoke about, the group respite.
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Rachel, one question. This is Jennifer. In using any of these respite, we would still need to have exhausted other funding sources, correct?
Pardon me?
Would we still have had to exhaust other AFCSP or NFCSP respite options first before utilizing this group respite grant?
No, the eligibility criteria is for the Caregiver Respite Grant program and the Supplemental Respite Grant program. So if the county doesn't need to exhaust their NFCSP funds before they can use the group respite grant.
Cool. Okay, great.
Yeah. All right. So without further ado, let me make you a co-host and introduce our guest speaker today. So Trisha is with us, and Trisha received her Bachelor's of Science in Community Health Education from the University of Arizona. She spent her 16-year career at the ADRC of Barron, Rusk, and Washburn counties. And 16 years. Time flies when you're having fun, right, Trisha?
Yes.
But Trisha,
I always think it was last year, and then it's like, oh no, that was 16 years ago.
yeah. But Trisha serves as the dementia care specialist for the Tri-County area, Barron, Rusk, and Washburn. Her passions include creating dementia-friendly communities and providing education and training and support that empowers people living with dementia, their family caregivers, businesses, and professionals. Trisha's ultimate vision for the world is where dementia is no longer stigmatized, where people are not reduced to their diagnosis, and where we treat each other's differences with empathy and understanding. Thank you so much, Trisha, for joining us.
Thanks, Rachel. All right, so I'm able to share my screen if I need to, right?
Yeah,
Perfect.
certainly.
All right, so thank you for that introduction. And so yeah, basically, as a dementia care specialist in the last 7 years at the ADRC, one of the things that kept coming up with the families that I would meet with is their need and request for respite. So definitely that first meeting, like Rachel said, is helping the family identify that, yes, they are actually a caregiver. It's ironic to me how many people, especially married couples, as many of you know, don't stop to think about that. So I worked with a 91-year-old lady who was taking care of her husband who had dementia, and she also had diabetes type 2. And I had asked her if she had ever thought what would happen to her husband if she ended up being hospitalized for, high blood sugars, or she couldn't get her blood sugars under control. And at 91, she had never thought of that yet, right? So again, we sometimes get so focused into our caregiving role because it comes out of love. So the idea that, oh yes, we also need these breaks and stuff doesn't typically come until later, till we're almost at that burnout point. So my goal as dementia care specialist has been trying to get the people that I work with to really recognize more of that preventative or future focus. Let's get started now. As many of us know, respite in general, like Rachel had said, is very hard to come by. So we do have agencies in our area, in-home care provider agencies. However, most of them will say that it takes at least 3 to 6 weeks to find somebody for a person. So even our agencies that should have employees, they're struggling. Our assisted livings, our nursing homes, everyone's struggling. In my unique experience, especially with caregivers whose spouses or parent has, especially early stage dementia, they needed the respite or the supervision, but not necessarily to the point of somebody coming in from an agency, right, with my scrubs on, with a whole assessment plan. For especially some of those that might have lost the insight into their disease, that would have gone over really badly. And they would have said, get out of the house, I don't need this. So a lot of people were looking for an option that's kind of in between the agency and, just everyday people. So besides, family or friends that they've pointed out with. I know some of us in the state of Wisconsin maybe had our own little file. We had a chores and care file in one county, but not in all 3 counties. We were having some issues with that as well. And so I had stumbled upon the ARCA website with the great registry. And so I thought, this is fantastic. I'm going to look up who are our providers that are serving in Barron, Rusk, and Washburn counties. So that was January of this year, December of last year. Again, I don't know, it all gets mixed up. And there was a big fat 0 for everyone. And so ARCA had these great grant programs, which was wonderful. We had these these options of in-home care agencies that still took a long time, but they're also about when we look at agencies, at least in the Northwest, the average rate is about $26 to $30 an hour for respite care. For many couples, especially when their partner is in early stages of dementia, that just seems like too much money to start spending on for he or she may not need that much, right? Just for somebody to come and make sure he doesn't wander away and get lost while I go to the grocery store. So in looking at that, I we also know that besides the dementia care specialist, information and assistance specialist, this is our #1 request that we are getting at the Aging and Disability Resource Centers. How can I get a break or have somebody come into the home to give me a break so that I can continue on caregiving? And so I teamed up with our caregiver coordinator in Barron County and worked with our managers for the 3 counties to write for this grant. Our idea of that is that we were going to hold information sessions to talk about this registry. I had seen it on Facebook pages. We had, during the pandemic, we had Neighbors Helping Neighbors pages popping up, and people were kind of using this to say, hey, is anyone available to help my my elderly mom in Barron, a couple times a week, come and sit with her. So I saw that this was kind of happening, outside and about. Sometimes we'll see it in the newspaper, but I thought this is great. There's a registry that is kind of that one-stop shop for all of the counties in Wisconsin. So if we could kind of direct everyone to get on that registry, then we would have this referral of the registry in addition to these in-home care agencies as well. So with that, our grant was to provide these information sessions, market, et cetera, and then also to provide $100 quick trip cards as incentive for completing the RCPT course. Because we know 5 to 7 hours, even though, it's great to have that training, it's an additional thing. And so we really wanted to incentivize just that motivation for completing the course and getting on the registry. So we started out this year holding some info sessions, and we did a lot of marketing on Facebook, and we boosted posts on Facebook. I went out to just not only our Facebook site for the ADRC, but the Neighbors Helping Neighbor pages that were out in our community, and started kind of posting the same things about the info sessions. Come join us. So Rachel and Val, or both, either or both, would join us on these info sessions, and we'd kind of talk about, what is respite, the importance of it, that there's definitely a long-term need, not only a current need, but the need will continue to grow, and that it's very flexible, very much scheduled to your hours that you want to work, to the items and things that you want to do, the locations that you want to serve. So you get to, again, be kind of in charge yourself, right? Be your own boss or have more control, especially if we think of like stay-at-home parents or retired people and who may not want to commit to something that's exactly 20 hours a week. So we held these, and we had a lot of feedback from them. I think on average, we'd have about 10 to 15 people join our info sessions. We'd hold some both during the day and then also early evening as well. So about once a month, we started that, and then we'd go to every other month. One thing we also tried was to attend our local job fairs. That I would recommend at this point in time to not do that. At this current state, everyone is hiring and they're given massive bonuses, and we just couldn't compete. So again, this is a special niche for people that are looking to provide this. And again, we're just trying to help guide them to one centralized kind of database for that. Not only then are our customers able to look for themselves, but if I'm talking to them on the phone and they don't have internet, or I'm with them in person, I can then print out those names of people and give it to them as well. Let's see, what else did we do with that? We also created a job ad on Facebook. That got a lot of response. However, Facebook kind of gave us the no-no because it was technically an employment, and there's more terms with that. So that was a good lesson learned, that we have to set it up just more as an opportunity. Recently, Rachel and our caregiver specialist recorded a video that talked about the opportunity of doing respite in this PowerPoint presentation, which I'll briefly go over. Talked about the course, the incentive, getting on it, et cetera. What is respite? And we boosted that in all 3 counties. I think we had over 12,000 views on that between the 3 boostings. So 12 to 15,000 views, which is a lot. Now, what will that mean for us? We literally just did that a couple of weeks ago. So then we have to kind of wait to see what kind of rewards we are going to reap from that. Our goal was to provide, is to get 20 caregivers in each county by the end of 2021, which is coming right up. So far, I'm at 12. So I'm still short of the goal, but we're still going at it and we're still working really hard to get there. Again, 12 is better than 0. So it's definitely a start. The neat thing about all of this is we've, in kind of this personal connection, I've been able to email a lot of our providers kind of in group emails, just checking in with them. How are things going? Are they getting calls? And they are busy. They are just like, this is great. I've had a couple of customers that I've worked with that have called me back and said, oh, I called up Dave Hill from the registry. He came out, and this was a lady who was thinking that her only option was to place her husband in the nursing home because she wasn't going to be able to handle it. She applied for the caregiver respite grant, got that, utilized him. And I mean, it's really turned around for her. And she was, again, somebody that was like, I'm really unsure about having somebody in my house, but helping her with that barrier, it was a really positive experience for her. And again, not only beneficial for her husband, for her, but also that delaying placement that maybe doesn't need to be right away. I'm going to pull up my screen now and just share what we kind of talked about on that presentation. Okay, and can everyone see my presentation screen? Yes, okay, thumbs up, okay. All right, so this is the information session, and I won't go through everything, but just kind of briefly move you through it. But the info session was, again, what is respite care? That a lot of people still, like Rachel had mentioned, don't know what that means, or what is that? In fact, I think one of my workforce resource job ladies had said, oh, I don't think anyone's going to be interested in that, because she was thinking it was completely different. So it's really important that we're educating people, like, what are the situations? So I would give people a really good example. I just need somebody to come and chat with my husband so I can run to the grocery store. He always gets lost when I bring him to the grocery store, or he gets really upset and doesn't want to go. If somebody could just sit and talk with him, or do an activity with him, or maybe even take him for a drive. And that's so different, because I think a lot of people think respite care is something way out here, or it's like really hands-on, involved, transferring people. So really being able to kind of bring those, the definition and what the barriers are in people's mind out in the open, that was great. We go over what the need is for respite care. And I think that's a good eye opener. I'll show you the map, the free respite care training, and then the statewide respite care registry, and our incentive. So we usually play a video that ARCA has already created that talks about exactly what is respite and the benefits for both the caregiver and the care recipient. I like to use the aging population maps a lot, especially because I am in the Northwest part of our state. But again, in looking at this in 2015, our aging population, was around here, anywhere from 18, to 24% of our population was age 65 and over. When we look ahead to just 2035, most of us are going to have more than 27% of our population age 65 and over, but for all counties, at least 21%. I mean, that's a huge shift in our population. So two things that we consider is, yes, as we grow older, we're more at risk for chronic conditions. So being a caregiver with and trying to manage a chronic condition can also be tough. But in my field, I also look at the numbers, right? So for people expected, the prevalence of dementia, we know is about 1 out of 9 folks over the age of 65, and at age 85, it increases to about 1 out of 2 or 1 out of 3. So if we look at our aging population, our numbers of people living with dementia are going to increase. In fact, they'll be increasing by about 68%. So again, in our northern area, there aren't even enough facilities, right, to house everyone that's going to have dementia, let alone that's where most people don't want to go there, at least not in the very beginning of my diagnosis, right, or middle of my diagnosis. I want to stay at home where I've come up here to retire for as long as I can. So again, when in talking to folks, just letting them know that this isn't a moment in time, but this can definitely be a long-term career plan for them, and a great source of income and career for them moving forward as well. We go over what the respite care provider training and registry is, just like Rachel did, and to get started, their incentive, and then questions. So both having the contact for Respite Care Association, and then also myself, we're the caregiver coordinator here for the county, which I think gives it the local connection too as well. Like there's somebody local that I can call and connect with that will at least, kind of intervene with ARCA or make sure that everyone's kind of on the same page with everything. I think some of the biggest questions that we got was, is there any liability for me going into people's homes? And that was a great question. And Val had been on our session and said that there was insurance companies that do provide insurance for in-home providers at $75 a year, which is way more reasonable than I thought existed out there. And so a lot of the people that were on our info sessions were like, that's great. That makes me feel comfortable, and that's very affordable, et cetera. The other one was, well, what if I'm not comfortable with, say, reminding somebody to take their medications, even though that's covered in the respite care professional core training. It's not something that, we talk to people, if you're not comfortable with that, it's not necessarily something that you have to do. So it can be really what you're comfortable with as well. So again, giving people the empowerment that, hey, if they're available only on weekends, that's okay. We're going to have the people kind of try to fit in your time. Two things I would say about this is that the respite care registry is awesome and phenomenal, but it's not the only answer. I definitely believe that there needs to be a variety of options for people at many different stages, and definitely in-home care agencies are needed, as well as assisted living and nursing homes. But there's definitely a niche that is missing for people that are just starting out or just need that supervision, companionship, maybe light housekeeping or light medication reminder, not necessarily help with bathing or help with bathroom. So that niche is really missing. The other thing I would say too, so again, we want to just have a variety of options available to give to our caregivers. And the other thing that we kind of told people too on our info sessions is that the going wage technically is about 12 to 20 bucks an hour. That's kind of the going rate. So it's really up to them as far as what they want to provide services at what cost, et cetera. But that gave them a good kind of base to know where to start with things, which I think is great. And I will show you, let's see, I'll share screen, our flyer. So this was one of the flyers that we put out, for example, where'd it go? Hold on, sorry, technical glitch. Here we go.
You're good.
And oh, here it is. Okay. I see all these things. So this was a flyer that we had created. Do you want a unique opportunity to be your own boss with a flexible schedule? Want to learn more about how you can earn money while getting to create meaningful moments in the lives of family caregivers and care recipients in their homes? Want to learn more? Check out this video, or we have our info session on there. And then learn how you can become an independent respite care provider and earn an average of 12 to 20 bucks an hour, earn $100 gas card incentive with the completion, et cetera. So we created that and have pushed this out in our papers, our newspapers, like I said, on Facebook, our website, lots of places. And in fact, I think our plan is, at least for Barron County, we used to have like a private pay just file that was loosely kind of put together of folks. Now that we're moving to the ARCA registry, what we'll be doing with that is we used to put monthly ads in, and we'll be putting monthly ads in to say, hey, are you interested in becoming an independent respite provider and registering on this respite care registry? Here's the website, but contact us if you want to know more. So we can continue to push that and push those opportunities. All right, so that's pretty much all I had. Are there questions, or what questions do you have?
Tricia, the $100 gift card, is that out of the Respite, the core grant?
Yes.
Is that where you got the money for? Okay.
Yes. Yep. So my idea with the budget was like $1,000 per county for that, or 2,000 wherever I was at the 20 caregivers, and then the rest of the money would be spent on marketing for it and all of that good stuff. And then the in-kind came from myself and the caregiver specialist. You know, the biggest thing as a dementia care specialist, I meet with families all the time, provide a lot of education and strategies and support, but really in looking ahead and looking in the future, with our caregiver kind of crisis or respite care provider crisis, there's no amount of education or support that I'm going to be able to give families that will end up helping if they cannot also find a break. It is impossible for somebody that is taking care of somebody living with dementia to be patient and do this 24 hours, 7 days a week. It's impossible. In fact, I know Rachel was going over statistics, but spouses of people living with dementia are more likely to die before their spouse does that's living with dementia, because they neglect their own care needs and the stress of it. So I'm going to shoot myself in the foot if I'm not also invested in this. So that's why the caregiver support specialist and myself really teamed up. And we also worked with our caregiver coalitions too. We tried to get some of them involved in the info sessions, but didn't have as much luck with that. I think this year has been a really rough year for many people who might be on a caregiver, coalition, as far as their busyness and where all the other directions that they might be getting pushed in. So we did work with them on that, though, to let them know that these were happening, to help us get the word out. And our hope is to apply for another grant when our registry is filled up even a little bit more, and really provide a connection in the community where we can bring caregivers to be more aware that this registry is available and what are the respite options in their community.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Now I know, I just want to, add, Trish, you and Alyssa as well also put in all of the work for this. And our CAW staff, we showed up and did 30 to 45-minute info sessions. So I don't want to take away that it wasn't a lot of work, but it's for our staff, it was easy peasy. And if you think about unemployment these days and trying to get people to work in any industry, I would say this was, I don't want to say easy, because I know you put work in, Tricia, so I don't want to devalue that, but it's been the easiest court grant so far that I've ever, you know what I mean? It's just it was, and look at the outcome. So
yes,
that is just, it's so great. So Tricia, I just want to thank you so much for coming today and sharing your knowledge and expertise, and sharing essentially how you did it, how you grew it from 0 to 12, and hopefully other people will replicate it in their counties.
Absolutely. And I will just share that we're very sharing county. So the flyers and the presentation templates, we are more than happy to share with other counties that want to apply, and you can make it your own and go that way, so you don't have to spend as much time. The other thing that Alyssa and I did is, instead of both of us, we wanted our feet to get wet in what we were doing on these information sessions and what people were saying back to us. But then after that, her and I just kind of split up. Every other month, I would take an info session, and then she would take the next month, et cetera. So we could balance our time a little bit more. So if you can find a partner in your organization, I think it's a great way to kind of tag team on something, so it doesn't become too much too.
Yeah, make it sustainable. Thank you so much once again, Tricia, and thank you so much for everyone else that joined us, and have a great day. And you know how to get a hold of us if you need us.
Yep. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.